All signs pointed to a return of the prince that was promised. A great winter had begun its silent, freezing creep, and the land of Westeros was filled with petty squabble, oblivious to the greater peril of the world. Using prayer and flame, the Red Priests of R'hllor, the Lord of Light, strove to make their mark and guide events in the direction their deity desired. The most active of R'hllor's servants in A Song of Ice and Fire was Melisandre. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Dubbed the Red Woman, or the Red Priestess, Melisandre sailed from Asshai to Dragonstone, where she became advisor to King Stannis Baratheon, who she believed to be Azor Ahai. Through her study of the flames and other mystical abilities, Melisandre grew to be a driving force behind many actions and reactions in the War of the Five Kings and beyond. She took an active approach to doing her lord's will, and thus shaped the world in the way she thought to be best. Though Melisandre's most important part to play may be yet to come, she already proved her competence as a Red Priestess. So, who exactly is Melisandre, and why is she such an interesting character? Let's explore. Melisandre was born on an unspecified date in the far eastern city of Asshai, a place of smoke and shadow. She was called Melanie then, and she was sold as a slave to the nearest Red Temple. Growing up surrounded by the shrines of the Lord of Light, Melanie was tossed aside, replaced by Melisandre, and as she grew up in the temple, she studied countless subjects. She learned many languages, so as to communicate with individuals and groups all across the world. She mastered shadow binding, that art so great and terrible. But above all, she studied the flames, learning the nuances and subtleties of being a true Red Priest of R'hllor. For countless years she busied herself in these practices, until she was a master of them all. But soon, she knew her time to influence events in the world had come, and she left Asshai for Dragonstone, the great island off the coast of Westeros. Melisandre was traveling to a strange land, but the flames assured her Azor Ahai, the prophesied hero of old, sat in wait there. Arriving at the harsh shores of the Dragon Island, Melisandre was a foreign yet beautiful sight to many of its Westerosi inhabitants. For though they found her eerie, her allure was undeniable. Her skin was pale and unscathed, her hair long and of deep copper. Her eyes glowed red, and they matched her garb, which was the red robes, gowns, and cloak, typical of all priests of the Lord of Light. Beneath her clothes, Melisandre was tall, slender, and full of form. She possessed a feminine voice, but one that was deep and booming, which she used to captivate crowds of followers and heathens alike. Around her neck sat a red gold choker with a ruby at its center, which glowed whenever she performed an act of magic. Melisandre never grew cold, no matter the temperature. Even as she swayed into the halls of the great stony isle, she deemed Stannis Baratheon, Dragonstone's lord, to be her envisioned hero, and so worked her way into his council. The Red Woman converted Stannis' wife, Solace, to the faith, and soon became the closest advisor to Lord Baratheon. Though Melisandre is not seen in A Game of Thrones, she is mentioned in foreboding passing. At the Crossroads Inn, Lord Tywin Lannister informs his son Tyrion that Lord Varys, the Master of Whisperers, has heard rumor that Stannis has brought a Shadowbinder from Asshai into his personal council at Dragonstone. This is undoubtedly in reference to Melisandre, though she arrived upon the island some time before this rumor started its whispering trek. In A Clash of Kings, Melisandre begins her true journey in the narrative. She sits at Dragonstone, having already converted Stannis' wife and queen, Selace Florent, to the faith of R'hllor. Stannis holds Melisandre in high esteem, but is still somewhat wary of her. His men, however, are terrified of her, only calling her the Red Woman so as to not utter her name. One night at supper, Cresson, the resident Meister of Dragonstone, proposes a toast between he and Melisandre, so as to make peace between their opposing views. The Red Woman agrees, and Cresson offers her a goblet of poisoned wine. Melisandre drinks, but is unaffected as the ruby in her choker glows bright. Cresson, unwilling to look a fool, drinks his portion of the wine, sending him to his death throes. With the representative of the Faith of the Seven now gone, Melisandre becomes the key religious influence on the island, and before long, she convinces Stannis to burn the statues of the Seven. Moving the monuments from their place in the sept to outside the gates, he agrees, and the new gods are set aflame, an offering to the Lord of Light. Melisandre shouts that Stannis is the reborn hero Azor Ahai, and he pulls a flaming sword from the fire, the great blade of antiquity, Lightbringer. Gone is the sigil of House Baratheon, the stag upon a field of gold. With his newfound faith and title, Stannis fashions himself a new symbol, one inspired by Melisandre and her Lord of Light. The new king now bears the banner of a stag within a flaming heart, paying homage to both his heritage and his faith in R'hllor. The enemies of Stannis conspire to use Melisandre and her forest religious influence to slander and defame his name across Westeros, but the Lord of Dragonstone hardly seems to pay mind to the rumors and whispers of those beneath him. With his brother Robert dead and the Seven Kingdoms in the midst of a brewing war, Stannis declares himself rightful king, entering the fold in the War of the Five Kings. His younger brother Renly, Lord of Storm's End, also stakes a claim to the Iron Throne, and as Stannis knows Renly has no legitimate chance, he sails from Dragonstone to lay siege upon his brother's lands. As always, Melisandre is at his side, and she urges Stannis to meet with Renly and allow him a final chance to bend the knee. Her king agrees, and Melisandre acts as his standard-bearer at the parley. Negotiations proceed poorly, however, and the two brothers come away without any agreement. Melisandre has already foreseen Renly's death in her visions from the flames, and in the middle of the night, with help from Stannis, she births a shadowy assassin from her own loins. This figure seeps into Renly's tent and slays him as he readies for battle in the morning, sending the young king's forces either into Stannis' own ranks or back to Bitterbridge in retreat. Despite this apparent victory, Stannis begins to have nightmares of Renly's death, and the Red Woman is his only solace from such horrific dreams. Though Renly's army is dissolved, his castellan of Storm's End, Sir Courtenay Penrose, remains staunch in his opposition to Stannis. In council with his king, Sir Davos Seaworth learns that Melisandre has seen the death of Sir Courtenay in a day's time, as well as Stannis' defeat at the hands of Renly outside King's Landing. While Stannis believes his brother's death has now prevented the latter, he looks to ensure the former comes true. As Davos was a skilled smuggler for most of his life, Stannis bids him to sail Melisandre underneath Storm's End in the dead of night. Davos obeys his king, and beneath the Baratheon castle, Melisandre births yet another shadow figure, who wisps away into the structure. The shadow slays Sir Courtenay, and his successor Lord Elwood Meadows surrenders the castle without resistance. At Melisandre's behest, Stannis burns the Godswood of Storm's End in sacrifice to the Lord of Light. Having recaptured his childhood home, Stannis now looks to King's Landing. As he counsels for war, the king heeds Lord Bryce Caron, who explains that if Melisandre is brought with to the capital, the men will credit the capture of the Iron Throne to her and not Stannis. So, the Red Woman is sent back to Dragonstone to wait out the fight, where it is later learned she burned victims with Queen Solace as sacrifices to aid King Stannis. The Battle of the Blackwater ensues, and Stannis is ultimately defeated, routed by the vanguard of Lord Tywin Lannister and Lord Mace Tyrell. Their soldiers are led by Sir Garland Tyrell in the late King Renly's armor, making Melisandre's previous vision come true, regardless of Renly's death. Stannis is forced to retreat, while Melisandre can only watch from afar. In A Storm of Swords, Melisandre consoles the defeated Stannis Baratheon back on the island of Dragonstone. Sir Davos Seaworth, having been stranded in Blackwater Bay, finally returns to the stronghold himself, but his king will not have anyone in his presence save the Red Woman. Davos, driven by grief over his sons who died in the battle, as well as the defeat overall, pledges to kill Melisandre as he believes her responsible for the tragedies. However, the Red Woman uses her powers to her advantage, arresting Davos after claiming to have seen his plan to kill her in the flames. The Onion Knight is thrown in the dungeons of Dragonstone, and Melisandre visits him despite the animosity between them. In their discussion, Melisandre explains that she cannot create another Shadow Child with Stannis without risk of killing him. She offers the opportunity to do so instead with Davos, but he refuses. Melisandre returns to her king's side, studying her fires and plotting over the future of her prince that was promised. Eventually, she conveys to Stannis that the blood of a king holds power, and if they harness that power together, he can win the Iron Throne. She suggests that they kill their recent charge Edric Storm, bastard son of the late King Robert, and use his king's blood to wake the Stone Dragon and win the war. Stannis, like Melisandre, realizes the need to hastily align the Seven Kingdoms under a single banner to prepare for the war against the Great Other, but he still refuses to sacrifice an innocent child. Instead, he only allows the Red Witch to extract some of the boy's blood with leeches, which she gives to Stannis to fling into the flames while uttering the names of the other usurper kings. In an eerie state of affairs, Balon Greyjoy and Robb Stark meet their swift deaths, the former falling from a bridge in a storm on Pike, and the latter suffering as a victim of the Red Wedding. Melisandre takes credit for the deaths on behalf of R'hllor, but warns Stannis of more potential false kings. She implores her king to finally sacrifice Edric Storm, as now he's seen for himself what king's blood can do. But Stannis again refuses, since Joffrey is still alive. Still, he implies to Sir Davos that if Joffrey too dies, he may just sacrifice the boy. Sure enough, Joffrey perishes, choking to death at his own wedding feast, and Davos hears word of that news before Stannis and Melisandre can take action. With the help of some loyal king's men, Davos smuggles Edric Storm off of Dragonstone, thwarting the Red Woman yet again. Later, Stannis, Melisandre, and Davos almost completely forget their previous quarrels, as the latter reads a letter to the former two from Maester Aemon at Castle Black. The letter describes the state of the Night's Watch, the Wall, and all the peril occurring beyond it, and pleads for aid from whoever will listen. Determining the real fight lies north, Melisandre encourages Stannis to lead his forces north, and before they depart, she sacrifices his disloyal uncle-in-law, Lord Alliser Florent, to the flames to grant them good fortune. After a grand journey north by way of sea, Melisandre arrives with Stannis and his men at Eastwatch by the Sea, and they ride west to Castle Black. In battle, Melisandre kills Orell's eagle, controlled by the skin-changer Varamir, with her flames, driving the wildling temporarily mad. The day is won, the wildlings repelled from the wall, though they are not the real threat. The Brothers of the Night's Watch welcome Stannis, Melisandre, and all the southern soldiers into Castle Black, upholding a punitive alliance. Pious as ever, Melisandre continues to hold her night fires, even in a cold and foreign place such as the Wall. She soon meets and becomes intrigued by Jon Snow, and she brings him to meet King Stannis. Expressing the need for an ally in the north, Stannis offers Jon the opportunity to put aside his life of service in the Watch and take up arms beside him as the new Lord of Winterfell. According to Melisandre, all he must do is burn the godswood in sacrifice to the Lord of Light. Jon refuses, though Stannis tells him Melisandre has seen the return of the wildlings in her flames, and that he must keep watch. Having no luck appealing to Jon Snow, Melisandre later meets with the officials of the Night's Watch and urges them to keep night fires always lit at their gates in protection from their enemy. Though most of the men are confused, Maester Aemon realizes she speaks of the War for the Dawn, the Great War, and asks her of the prince that was promised. Melisandre informs him the prince, the great hero of which was prophesied, is Stannis Baratheon. Melisandre continues her residence at Castle Black throughout A Feast for Crows. Mance Rayder, king beyond the wall, leader of the Wildlings, sits as a captive of the Watch, and King Stannis plans to execute him. Melisandre intends to use him as a sacrifice to R'hllor, fulfilling the need for king's blood required to wake the dragon, as she wished to do with Edric Storm before. Jon Snow, weary of the Red Witch's methods, sends away Maester Aemon with Samwell Tarly to Oldtown, as he possesses king's blood himself, and also forces the wildling girl Gilly to accompany them while nursing the baby of Mance Rayder, leaving behind her own child in a deceptive switch. For Mance's son may also be seen as having king's blood, but Gilly's baby has no such property. As intentions at the Wall grow more sinister, Maester Aemon confides within Samwell aboard the ship Cinnamon Wind as they make for Oldtown, explaining that he believes Daenerys Targaryen, not Stannis Baratheon, is the prophesied hero. Aemon says that he thinks Melisandre has deceived herself, ignoring signs that point away from Stannis. In A Dance with Dragons, the Red Woman waits at the wall with Stannis, contemplating her visions in the flames. She walks with her king atop the wall every night, staring into the cold wasteland beyond the known world. Yet she also begins to provide aid to a different sort of king, in the form of new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow. Melisandre is at Stannis' side when he meets with Jon, where the two men discuss northern alliances, occupation of the north by the King's men, and the fate of Mance Rayder. Melisandre escorts Jon back to his chambers at the conclusion of the meeting, and reveals to him that she'll ask her Lord of Light about what to do with Mance. Stannis still plans to burn the king beyond the wall, but the Red Woman isn't so convinced, as Jon adamantly believes they may yet have use of him. Before they part ways, Melisandre warns Jon to stay safe, as she's seen daggers in the dark surrounding him as visions in her flames. Though Jon attempts to dissuade Stannis, the Baratheon king is staunch in his view that Mance Rayder must be sacrificed in the flames. So, in a rare act of defiance, Melisandre places a glamour over both Mance Rayder and the wildling Rattleshirt, making them switch appearances to the naked eye. While Mance lives as Rattleshirt, the real Rattleshirt is sacrificed in fire, looking like Mance. During the gruesome ceremony, Melisandre also destroys the Horn of Joramun, the mighty instrument said to be able to bring down the wall. Through the work of the Red Woman, Mance clings to life disguised as Rattleshirt, and Melisandre even offers his services to Jon Snow. The Lord Commander refuses over his hatred toward Rattleshirt, as he still is unaware of the switch. Melisandre and the hidden King Beyond the Wall watch as Jon allows the wildlings into the domain of Westeros, giving them shelter in a widely unpopular decision. The Red Woman, however, along with Stannis, requires that the wildlings swear loyalty to R'hllor, and though they do so on the surface, most still practice worship toward the old gods out of sight of Melisandre or the king's men. Soon, Stannis prepares to finally march upon Winterfell, but Melisandre remains behind. Though she is accompanied by a retinue of soldiers and men-at-arms, it is only to keep up appearances, for she feels unthreatened at the wall. Before Stannis leaves, she asks him to also leave behind the young squire Devon Seaworth, Davos's eldest living son. The Onion Knight has already lost enough children, and so Stannis agrees. Beginning in that moment, young Devon regards Melisandre in a new light, one of awe, thankfulness, and beauty. As her king marches south, Melisandre stays behind and further contemplates her visions. They grow stronger at the wall, as if magic is more potent there, and she sees disturbing images she believes to be of servants of the Great Other. She pleads to see Azor Ahai, but instead of Stannis, sees Jon Snow, his face shifting between man and wolf. She continues to host her night fires, but the attendance plummets, with most of the faithful men gone with her king. All is relatively quiet at the wall, until Jon Snow receives disturbing news. A letter arrives at Castle Black, announcing the wedding of Ramsay Bolton and Jon's half-sister, Arya Stark. Confused and angered, Jon mulls over the upcoming events, and Melisandre tells him she's seen Arya as a gray girl fleeing her marriage upon a dying horse, and she believes the girl will come north. The Red Woman also sees that 3 of the 9 rangers Jon just sent north as scouts will die, eyes gouge out of their heads. She tells Jon she can teach him her power to see these things, but he flatly refuses. Spurned once more by the Lord Commander, Melisandre turns to her hidden ally Mance Rayder, explaining that they can only truly win Jon over by rescuing Arya from the clutches of the Boltons. Mance agrees, and Melisandre seeks out Jon, who is north of the wall. Before him are the heads of 3 Night's Watch Rangers, impaled on spikes, marking one of Melisandre's predictions true. Jon asks her of the other rangers beyond the wall, and of the other Night's Watch strongholds, and though she tells him nothing of the lost men, she explains she's seen battles upon the wall in her visions. She can't confirm which stronghold will be attacked first, but all logic points to Eastwatch. Melisandre ushers Jon back to her chambers, where she reveals that Mance Rayder is still alive, hidden by glamour as Rattleshirt. With Jon's blessing, Mance travels in disguise with his spearwives as Abel the Bard, intent on rescuing Arya from Ramsay and the Boltons. When Mance and his spearwives have long disappeared from sight, however, Melisandre's other previous prediction comes true. A gray girl upon a dying horse arrives at the gates of Castle Black, but it is Alyce Karstark, not Arya Stark. Alyce is fleeing marriage to her cousin Cregan, who wishes to use such a wedding to stake his claim over Carhold. Queen Solace Florent, wife to King Stannis, has also just arrived from Eastwatch, and agrees Alyce should be married to Sigorn, the new Magnar of the Thenns, and Melisandre oversees the wedding ceremony. Though the Karstark men come looking for Alyce, they are captured and held in the ice cells for their treacherous schemes. In an unpopular decision, Lord Commander Jon Snow sends Cotter Pike and other Black brothers aboard ships to rescue the wildlings stranded at Hardhome, but the Red Woman attempts to dissuade him from doing so. Melisandre tells Jon that she has foreseen that none of the ships will return, and the idea is a waste of time and resources. Jon, however, has a larger heart than the Night's Watch will allow, and goes through with the plan anyway. Dissent grows in the Watch, and it all boils to the surface on a night of chaos, in which multiple Black brothers stab Jon Snow for what they believe to be the greater good of the Night's Watch. The daggers in the dark are no idle threat, and another of Melisandre's visions comes true. Starting with the events in the second volume in A Song of Ice and Fire, Melisandre demonstrates her role as a proactive prophet quite often. She is unfazed by the Westerosi suspicion surrounding the faith of R'hllor, and proudly claims her backing of Stannis as Azor Ahai reborn. The longer the citizens of Dragonstone observe her, the more they come to trust her, or at least respectfully fear her and her power. Though Stannis mounts his forces to enter the War of the Five Kings because he believes in his claim to the throne, Melisandre only strengthens his resolve and assures him that he's correct. The Red Woman is always looking to her flames for guidance, and Melisandre greatly shifts the balance of power in the war through her plots and use of shadow magic. King Renly's army folds into Stannis' own once she assassinates him, bringing enough troops to her own king's camp to mount an attack on King's Landing. Though the effort fails, something else Melisandre foresaw in her Nightfires. It marks an important moment in the war. And then when Stannis turns north, Melisandre has a great part to play in convincing him. While the other kings sit and squabble over a petty throne, she understands that the real battle, the one for humanity, lies at the fringes of the known world. She, along with Stannis and his men, sail for the Wall, and to all the other participants in the politics of the realm, their departure must seem foolhardy. Though having suffered a crushing defeat at the Battle of the Blackwater, Stannis and Melisandre with him still have a mighty sway upon parts of the Seven Kingdoms, and they seem to have given it up for a rumor of undead things. Yet when they arrive at the Wall, they save the Night's Watch and take up residence at Castle Black, where Jon Snow negotiates with Stannis and gives him advice on liberating the North from the Boltons. Stannis departs, but Melisandre stays behind. Her focus has shifted slightly to Jon Snow. When asking to see Azor Ahai in her flames, she beholds not Stannis, but the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. But she also sees great peril. Melisandre attempts to gain Jon's trust by working with Mance Rayder to save Arya Stark, yet still Jon is uneasy, even though many of her prophetic visions come true. And when he is betrayed in a mutiny, all Melisandre can do is pity him, for she warned Jon of his approaching danger. In every instance, Melisandre uses her power to speak boldly and advise whoever she follows. Whether she sees a victory or defeat in the flames, the Red Woman believes it is meant to happen, and steers events toward the will of the Lord of Light. With her power of prophecy, she doesn't sit idly by and wait for her visions to unfold. She works with and through those with greater power than her to come to those conclusions, and then whatever lies past them. Melisandre's influence in the War of the Five Kings, and then in the brewing conflict at the Wall, cannot be understated. Her ways could be considered primal and barbaric, but evidence of her power and sway amongst the people of Westeros only grows with each passing night. Yet, her most important moments may lie ahead. Jon Snow lays dying in a bloody puddle outside the shield hall of Castle Black. Stannis plunges toward Winterfell and a brutal battle, and beyond the Wall, the others creep ever closer. The Red Woman will certainly be of more importance in the events to come than in anything she's done so far. But for now, all Melisandre can do is interpret and act on her visions as best she can. If the night is truly dark and full of terrors, the Red Priestess Melisandre would surely be the first person to seek out in a fight against it. Coming from Asshai all the way to Dragonstone, and then eventually to the Wall, Melisandre amassed a following dedicated to R'hllor, the Lord of Light, in preparation for the war against the Great Other. However, she did so in servitude to an earthly ruler, Azor Ahai Reborn. Though the Red Woman herself admitted not all of her magic was a divine gift, her power and visions from the flames gave evidence to her mystical authority. Though the most important moments of Melisandre's life may have yet to unfold, her role in the narrative thus far created a colossal impact in life and eternity. Melisandre dispensed the gift of proactive prophecy. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts below. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both will be in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.